Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian talk show on Polk TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always.
Thank you. And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Hello to
Welcome
everyone.
to the show, Ivan. I'm aware that you have a movie for us. Let's start with it.
Yeah, let's start with that movie.
Okay.
Тихенько таки. Яночка, потерпи, будь ласка, сонечко. Ні.
Куди йди?
Чоловік, я знаю, що він залишився, але я чувствую, що він там. Він вже, мабуть, не живий.
А вам не потрібна допомога?
Ніхто мені допоможе. Хто допоможе? Цей світ жорстокий.
Ви встигли вийти, чи вас вже доставали рятувальники?
Я сама витягнула туди.
Ви тут все життя живали?
22 роки.
Угу.
Заробила сама квартиру двірником.
Розумію. Собачка вас дуже злякалась.
Собачка вижила. І ще 3 котики не вижили.
Це моя мама. Олена Лунівна її звали. Їй 85 років мало виповнитися цього року. Хоч вона і старенька була, але вона була кріпенька і вмирати вона ще не збиралася. Але такий злочин цієї ночі стався знову на нашу країну. І долетіли до нас, і втрапила ракета в будинок. І моя мама загинула, і не стало її в мене. Ну, я не знаю, що ще вам сказати. Я ненавиджу Росію, я ненавиджу їх президента. Та ми всі ненавидимо, тому що вже стільки горя принесли нам. Дітей багато загинуло, людей. Ну, це неможливо так жити.
Було страшно досить.
Все класно.
Ймовірно, під завалами можуть ще бути люди.
Все окна побиты, все потрощено. Я стресс получила. У меня погибла девочка знакомая. Ее сестра шла и говорит: тетя Галя, Анечки уже нет. Аня. Хорошая девочка. 2 года ребенка родила. Папу, слава богу, вытащили из-под завала. Вот он оттуда спасся с ребенком. Вы представляете? Он живой. Анечки нет.
Тривога була, потім якийсь свист був, вибігли в коридор всі, потім було декілька бахів оцих, було страшно досить.
У нас є маленька дитина, хлопчик Артем. Він дуже сильно злякався. Сусіди сильно постраждали, в них квартира виходить на 2 сторони, тому в них повністю балкон просто вилетів. В стеклах.
За нашу інформацію, ймовірно, під завалами можуть ще бути люди. Був живий хлопець, і близько 30 хвилин ми його діставали дуже-дуже обережно, ми його передали медикам.
А ви в цьому будинку і це поруч друг одразу живе? Так. І ви не знаєте?
Я не знаю, що з ним.
Їхній рідний, їхній близький друг, він був під завалом, і вони тут чатували з самого ранку. Власне, зараз бачимо їхні емоції. Перепрошую. Бачимо, що все більше школярів приходять, і вони всі плачуть. Розуміємо, що дівчину ми бачимо там вдалечині. Це, зокрема, дівчина хлопця, якого чекали, в неї теж істерика. Вона зі своєю мамою.
It's very clear from my perspective. Russia is simply continuing terror. They cannot win militarily in the absolute sense. And so, and President Trump, despite he's sending out contradictory messages. In one time saying that really that Crimea cannot be forced to stay with Russia, or that Ukraine cannot be forced to give up Crimea. And then he contradicts it. Then he sends out another message. So I find this very peculiar. There is no basis for a ceasefire. Therefore, but by default, the war is going to continue. And I agree with Sasha for his previous programs. Recommended just let them fight. Because Russia cannot force the issue. President Trump, with his economic policies, is actually making Russia less able to carry on the conflict. Through dropping of the prices of oil. So this it's a net, the situation as a net is moving in favor of Ukraine. And regardless of what the Trump administration says or does, they cannot force a peace. They simply can't. And that's my take on it.
My take is that Putin is acting in harmony and agreement with Trump, where Putin will attack the civilian targets, which is terror attacks in its prime. There is no way to describe it otherwise. And Trump will continue its method of squeezing Ukraine to agree that Crimea is Russian, and other factors, the rare metals deals, all this garbage. And but see, all this garbage would not work alone, but supported by Russian relentless terrorist attacks. This as a package works quite well, and Ukrainians are getting very, very squeezed by both sides together. And one day Trump would have to be responsible for all these losses of lives by Ukrainians, by withholding help, by helping the terrorist Putin, sending this idiot Vitkov to talk about the Arctic, this and that. This is all, can you imagine that Churchill would send somebody to Hitler to discuss some joint venture, let's do this, let's try this. You can't imagine that, but with Trump, you can expect anything. And although, okay, he's sorry to fucked up all those tariffs and everything else is going apart, U.S. economy is going apart, and now he's also having complete fiasco in international politics. How is he going to justify his actions? He's a dam, as what somebody said, the pile of stones. Something like that. That's just getting incredible, and we'll see. It still continues. I'm glad though to find out that Europeans are supporting Ukraine quite a bit.
And that is a key, because the European Union is saying the sanctions will continue. The sanctions will continue unless Russia withdraws from Ukraine, all of Ukraine, including the Crimea. That's a key. They keep the pressure there, and if President Trump he continues with his energy policies to drop the price of oil, that is also going to apply more indirect, and eventually direct pressure on Russia's ability to continue the war. And I still maintain, contrary to the assertions of most Western military analysts, the one key hidden card that Ukraine can still play, in my opinion, in my assessment, is that a military operation again to seal off the Crimea and force the surrender of the Russian occupiers there. If Ukraine can summon up the reserves and look for the proper timing in which to do this, they can still unleash a surprise offensive which will dramatically reverse the military situation. And I believe that would be I'm sort of I'm staying, shall we say, prayerfully optimistic that the Ukrainians will find the opportunity to unleash that surprise offensive.
I would like to ask you, Ivan, I would like to ask you a question that Trump was asked, what concessions Russians are prepared to do for a peace? And you know what Trump replied is that they will promise not to take over all Ukraine, and they will stay only there where you are, but Ukraine must recognize that Crimea is Russian. How would you formulate it?
That's not a concession.
Russia lost almost 1 million people. What kind of promise that
they still can't get not all Ukraine, but all Donetsk region for more than 3 years.
How about Kursk region? They're still fighting there.
Yeah, Kursk and Belgorod region. It looks funny because during his presidential election campaign, he said that he will make Russia stop this war, and otherwise he will implement sanctions towards Russia, and he will get more military help to Ukraine. Now he's not talking about all possible military help to Ukraine as his effort in case Russia will not accept the conditions of this peace deal. He's talking only about sanctions, and I agree with you, Sasha. It looks like that Ukraine is a point of disturbance for Trump, because Ukraine doesn't allow Trump to do business with Russia. Simply, he's sending his.
We have things like national sovereignty to concern ourselves with. Ukraine is interested in continuing to exist.
Ivan, I know what kind of business Trump and Putin will do. Trump will build Trump Tower on the Red Square instead of mausoleum. They will remove Lenin and the stupid mausoleum, and they will build Trump Tower. And then Putin will build the Red Square and the mausoleum on 42nd Street in New York. That's that type of business they will do.
Yeah, I think that it can be even worse for New York if this process continues, because Putin is playing. He simply is when Trump and his advisors consider Russia as a business partner, and they think that they can achieve some income from Russia. At the same point, Putin and Russian government and Russian people are considering United States as enemy, as existential enemy, because they were born with the idea that the United States are enemy towards Soviet Union, that the United States want to destroy them, and now Russian propaganda is doing everything to persuade Russian people that United States, that Anglo-Saxon world, United States, Great Britain, Europe, they want to destroy the mighty Russia and to take all Russian riches and blah blah blah. And in this game, simply one is going to achieve some benefits from this deal, while other is preparing for the upcoming conflict, and he's preparing and he's doing everything to weaken his enemy. Now, all these things we see in the global politics of the United States, withdrawing from the Europe, of United States making those, implementing those tariffs and trade wars with allies like Canada, like European Union, like Taiwan. They're simply destroying the unity of the Western world, of the United States and their allies. And I think that in Kremlin, Russians are really happy about that, because their common enemy, they still consider United States and Western world as their enemy, because they are just on the opposite sides of the attitude towards the type of the government. Russia is on the despotic side, both with China, both with North Korea, both with Iran, and the United States, European countries are on the side of the democratic countries. This is a very dangerous game for American people. I don't think it's a dangerous game for President Trump. I think that he will not survive till the end of this game. But the consequences of his efforts, they just will be really dangerous and devastating for the American people.
Actually, I just want to mention something, that Trump is doing a lot of illegal things, by the way. Even his tariffs are illegal, because he took upon himself authority from the Congress, claiming that there is a national emergency, which would give him power to impose tariffs and remove tariffs as well, and so on. So he usurped this authority absolutely unlawfully. That will be taken care of the American legal system. We'll see what it will rule. But I just don't see any emergencies. That there is a debt of $37 trillion. It's been around for quite a while, and Trump was the first one who increased it in his first cadence as president of $8 trillion. And now new budget already will increase it to another $4 trillion, if not more. And he wants to do the tax cuts for his rich friends. And I don't think I would agree with Ivan that he will not make it to full 4 years. I think midterm elections will be lost badly by Republicans, and there might be there are already several drafts of impeachment. It's a little bit too early for that, because they don't have enough voices for that, but they will have, I'm pretty sure, enough by midterm elections, which year and a half from now. Now, I'd like to mention something very important. Ukraine right now took a strategic pause in all these agreements and all these talks with US and so on. They're concentrating on working with the European friends, and they will prepare a clear, or they should prepare, I shouldn't say they will, but they should definitely prepare a very clear plan what to do, when to do, with whom to do, and who is responsible for what. And Ukraine now must take initiative. It's not France or Germany, or they will all support it, but Ukraine must do that. And for that, Ukraine must activate its diplomacy channels, and hopefully to have enough schooled diplomats. Even, I'm sorry to say, they might even learn something from the Soviets, how they conducted their diplomacy at a critical juncture. And okay, so they must learn something. What I mean by learning from KGB, I never expected to say anything like that. But look,
Well, yes.
well, there is something. Look, if they, John, don't admit it, if they could prevail in making compromise figure like Donald Trump, the president of United States, twice. He was compromised figure since the late 80s. He had bankruptcies, even if you look or read what he publishes, he has a vocabulary of 15 years old mediocre student, really. That's all it is. Ukrainian people will be happy, and Russian people will be happy. And so he's talking on the level of his electorate. His electorate is the most uneducated people who are making
particularly in the post World War II era.
Yeah.
I would say that the Americans have been largely, Americans usually as a group have been relatively uneducated regarding to world geography, international affairs, have tended to be very isolationist. That tendency subsided somewhat during the Cold War, but now what you have is a situation where the United States Americans need to be re-educated, and really, again, that book, my book, The Russian View of U.S. Strategy, that's the only one of its kind. That no one else in America talks about that.
Never mind Ryan Bull, right?
Never mind Trump's transition team. I would tend to question what sort of education or what sort of training does his national security team have? What did they study when in order to arrive at the conclusions or take the approach that they have taken?
They studied diplomacy at Trump's university.
They studied diplomacy. And you say, as my professor, Dr. Leon Garay, once said, he said, diplomacy has never solved anything, really, if in the long term. He says, now wars are very messy ways of settling things, but they do settle the issue. It was determined that Germany would not dominate Europe twice by means of a war. The American Revolution, it was determined that America would be independent of Great Britain by means of a war. It had to fight a war to do that. Israel's existence was justified by means of several wars. And again, and ultimately, Ukraine's sovereignty will and has to be decided decisively, I project, by means of a successful war, which frustrates Russia's ability. Russia and Ukraine, at least certainly from my perspective, apparently not from some others, they have politically irreconcilable objectives. You cannot reconcile Putin's desire to reestablish the Russian Empire with the Ukrainian desire for sovereignty and independence. Ukraine's sovereignty and independence is a gigantic roadblock to Putin's desire to reestablish the Russian Empire. And apparently, some leaders in the West simply refuse to, or cannot understand that there are some issues for which compromise, in the sense that we understand it, is not possible. When you have clearly clashing objectives, that either one side or the other has to give up its objective, and either Ukraine gives up its right to exist, or Russia gives up its desire to reestablish an empire.
John, a quick question to you. Tell me, please, as much as Trump controls U.S. politics, Congress, Senate, do you think that he has a chance, with the Putin being a murderer, make some kind of a deal with him, whether it's for Arctic or a real estate project or just anything?
Yeah. He is going to discover he has encountered someone with whom no deal can be made. He's going to discover it against his will. Its reality is going to force itself upon him and his consciousness and his team. These are people with whom no deal can really be made. We cannot trust them. So
I think that even MAGA will get
they will get the point. There are some people with whom you cannot make a deal, and so that is going to be one of the things that again, that's the point that I raised. Now, the interesting thing is that without intending to do so, President Trump's desire to establish a golden dome over America. In other words, he also says he wants to abolish all nuclear weapons. Well, guess what? In the Kremlin, that frightens the hell out of them, because they see their nuclear forces as their main means of leverage, their symbol of great power status, their means of intimidating the West and using that as a cover to accomplish their objectives. You notice how much they brandish their nuclear arsenal during this entire 3-year period, how they've been threatening to escalate and relying on that threat of escalation to intimidate the West. But when President Trump says we want to establish a golden dome and protect the United States from nuclear attack, and even though it's also indirectly says, well, we've got to study that way to block intercontinental ballistic missiles, and I've previously discussed how that can be accomplished, because of all of this, because he's pursuing the Golden Dome, if the United States succeeds in creating that, and preferably by the means that I'm suggesting, then they will have neutralized Russia and China and North Korea's main means of great power status and leverage. So they'll have done something which the Russians are very much afraid of. So I find this a very contradictory set of actions. If you're going to be consistent, if you're going to, if you're going to increase energy production and drop the price of oil, well, why don't you be, that's consistent. If you're trying to reduce Russia's power, that's consistent with also trying to neutralize Russia's nuclear arsenals with a Golden Dome. So, but why at the same time are you trying to give Ukraine to Russia? That again, it tells me that the Trump team has not thoroughly thought through a grand strategy, let alone a strategic foreign policy for its entire term and beyond. They are indulging in what I call ad hoc. They are reacting to each situation separately. They are not coordinating.
Jonathan, let's go slowly into the Golden Dome project. It requires time.
Yes.
It requires also resources.
Yes.
Money, US dollars, for example. Okay. What's the situation with US dollars? This year, $9 trillion would have to be refinanced on the world market. There are no takers of US debts, and the dollar as a result going down almost daily, and accordingly gold and silver are going up, and this entices US on a day of the auction raise interest rate 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times to entice the foreign buyers. So besides $37 trillion plus 4 new budget is going to allow for another $4 trillion. It's 41. So there are also something what's not in the balance sheet. It's a Medicare all the social obligations and so on. So it all accumulates to 130, 140 trillion dollars. That makes US a bankrupt country. So far, there is no way out of it. And yet, it's the most obnoxious beggar in the world. Instead of politely asking for help or cooperation, they are imposing 145%.
Yeah,
Can you see what an idiot could devise such policy instead of appeasing and working in close cooperation with the rest of the countries? He's going all in, hurting himself and his country so badly. And there is no, you know what? Let's imagine, okay, 1 month already passed. Let's see another 60 days. Let's see he will lower the tariffs or cancel the tariffs. The damage has already been done. He made Canada is the largest trading partner, a very friendly country, in arch enemies. There's no bigger enemy in the world to US than Canada. In Canada now, I've seen in supermarkets.
I'm waiting for the invasion.
You know, in Canada, they are, before they're buying anything, they want to make sure that it's not produced in the United States. If it's not in the United States, they're buying. If it's produced in the United States, they don't even put it back on the shelf. They throw it on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Just get rid of this garbage. So this is the consequential damage. Incredible damage has been done. For doing what? What is the benefit to the United States for creating so many enemies? There is none. Now, with his foreign policy, by working with Putin, sending this idiot Vitkov to, he's like, what is he?
Yeah, I have to question what Mr. Witkoff's
projects, real estate projects, Arctica exploration. Both countries, they don't have money, they don't have technology to do any. Forget about Arctic exploration. Just to do, even to build some sporting arena, they would not be able to do it. They just don't have money. They don't have manpower. They don't have experience. They don't have anything. If you want to build something, invite China. They will do it at fraction of the cost and very quickly. See, don't forget, okay, both Vitkov and Trump, they are New York developers. The only business dirtier than developing business, real estate developing, is narcotics trade, drugs. That's the only one. And especially in many ways, drugs business is cleaner than developer business, because the drugs, okay, here's your drugs, give me your money, done deal, okay? Developers, how they can achieve any advantage over the other developers, their competitors or so on. So they learn how to replace materials, to put second-graded materials instead of ones that they agreed. They are cutting corners, they're breaking the laws, they hire illegal immigrants, which Trump did himself in the 80s when he was doing development business in Manhattan, when he had the Polish workers who were working there in horrible conditions. They were taking they were sleeping there, and it was horrible conditions. And believe it or not, he didn't even pay them. So he was held to salaries and say, oh, if you don't like it, take me to court. Take your chances. It will take you 8.5 years to get anywhere, and you will be broke by that time anyway. This is developing business. This is developers' business. And both Trump and Vitkov are coming out of there. So there are two very dirty people in charge of most important international affairs. This is incredible. I really despise who they are and what they're doing, really.
Well, Sasha, you're just going to have to learn to express yourself more forcefully and stop holding back and being so shy.
Thank you, John.
tell us how you really feel. But in any case, since this is, after all, the Ukraine show, and we don't want Ivan sitting there going, so, okay, when are you guys going to get back to Ukraine? All right. Yeah, he's the focus of our program. He's the reason his country is the reason we're here.
Yeah.
So we have to, again, turning this back to the central point. Right now, Ukraine, I still maintain, in spite of all of the incredible, it is an incredible mess no matter how you look at it. But the central card that Ukraine still holds is that ability to unleash at a time of its choosing that offensive, that counteroffensive, and I have contended all along, Crimea. And by the way, other people are recognizing how valuable Crimea is to both sides. It's not like I'm the only one who notices, hey, Crimea is the center of gravity. Others are recognizing it too. But the difference is the other analysts are essentially saying, well, no, Ukraine has no chance of taking back Crimea. That would be a mistake, in my opinion. They have been hammering the Kerch Bridge. They have been steadily reducing Russia's naval presence in the Black Sea, forcing them to relocate. And the preconditions are being set for Ukraine again, and they are rightly keeping their cards very close to the vest. They are not saying anything whatsoever, about the possibility of retaking Crimea.
It's a diplomatic pause right now.
It's a diplomat. You're correct. It's a diplomatic pause. They're keeping their own counsel. They're being very quiet. They're making deals with European allies, and even though they're not part of NATO, they are trying to become. NATO members are recognizing, and the European Union are recognizing, that supporting Ukraine is their best bet for long-term survival if they want to avoid another major war subsequent to the one in Ukraine. So in this case, that is why, in spite of all the things going on in America, in the United States, and everywhere else, I keep my focus very centrally controlled on that key point. I tend to focus on that and watch, and I would be willing to predict within the next several months, as the weather becomes more suitable for offensive operations, and we're getting into that period now, and that Russia's power to conduct an offensive is steadily decreasing. The logistics system is no better than it was. As a matter of fact, it's even worse. Donkeys to get supplies to the front. Are you kidding?
Golf cars,
motorcycles.
motorcycles.
Yeah. Well, what kind of a logistics system is that? The Russians in World War II, remember, most of their logistics system was horse-drawn wagons. They did not have a motorized logistics system. They acquired one when the U.S. sent Ford trucks. That was what enabled the Russian army to sustain any kind of offensive. And they wouldn't have been able to drive the Germans out of Soviet Union if it not been for that. And now history is repeating itself in a very strange way in the current situation. The weakness of Russian logistics is coming to the fore once again, and their power to contain that. And that's why, by the way, Ivan, that's why they're resulting to terror attacks. When the Luftwaffe failed to gain air superiority, and when the Great Britain very wisely struck Berlin, Hitler, in a rage, ordered attacks on London, and the Germans shifted on terror bombing of London, trying to break the will of the British people. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. Just history suggests of Ukrainian resistance to Russian attacks, and so I do not see Ukraine folding anytime in the near to intermediate future, and it's a very tense situation. But I firmly believe that the Ukrainians are holding back and are gathering their strength, much the same way, in an odd way, that Germany gathered its strength near the end of World War II for one last counteroffensive. Only this time, the sides are switched, and Ukraine has a unique opportunity, and that they can't afford to waste it. They have to gather their strength and decide, okay, this is the moment. This is when we will launch the attack that seals off Crimea, takes it back, and lays a very firm foundation for stopping the war.
Well, in my opinion, Ivan, I think you will agree with me that Ukraine already proved to the world its abilities to fight Russians on the Russian territory, on Ukrainian territory, everywhere. I think it's a time to build very strong coalition of Western partners, and I identify the countries which easily will join this coalition, headed by Ukraine. Nobody else. Ukraine must head the coalition, which will include Canada, UK, France, Germany, Sweden, Finland, Baltic republics, Poland. Easy.
Norway.
Maybe
Norway, Denmark.
Norway.
Luckily, Sasha, there is a lot of countries who really appreciate what Ukraine is doing, and who really support Ukraine, and they support and their population support Ukraine. And the problem is Japan actually is a great example of how they can support Ukraine. And the problem is that the majority of Americans, they're also supporting Ukraine. But unfortunately, American politicians, they're putting their own interest towards the interests of their electorate. And hopefully, we will, I agree with you, we will see it next year during the elections to Congress. And obviously, the Republican Party will lost their majority, reflecting the attitude of American people towards the policy of Donald Trump. But before that, what is remarkable, actually, and it was funny, a lot of Ukrainians were laughing from this, one of the latest words of Donald Trump, that he said that without his great efforts, Ukraine will fail in 3 years. And Ukrainians were really laughing. The whole 3 years in the beginning of this war, we are given 3 days that Ukraine will fall in 3 days. We are already fighting for more than 3 years, and Donald Trump
go for another 3 years?
Gives us the whole 3 years. In 3 years, I think that both Donald Trump and President Putin and obviously Russia will collapse and go to their end.
Ivan, in 3 years, given the state of Putin's health, which according to what reports is not all that great, and Putin could well be dead long before those 3 years are up, and that could be stop the. Go ahead.
According to state of Russian economy, Russia could be dead until the next of this year, actually, because this peace deal is more valuable and needed for Russia, not for Ukraine. What is the point? Of course, Russia is terrorizing Ukraine. Of course, they're shelling Ukrainian city. They're killing civilians. But the result of these peace negotiations, what is given to Ukraine, like fact that Ukraine should legally accept the annexation of Crimea, that Ukraine should legally cancel our attempt to join NATO, and all that stuff. They're not acceptable. They looks like capitulation of Ukraine. Russia already won this war. Russia is far away from winning this war. Russia cannot even capture the Donetsk region. Putin issued dozens of his orders to capture the Donetsk region till that date and till another date and till the date after another, and you should capture the Donetsk region till the next sacral date for Russia, 9th of May. But by this time, Russia is preparing for something to happen in Crimea before the 9th of May. They're closing the civil traffic over the Crimean bridge. The Russian officers, they're moving their families from Crimea.
They seem to be anticipating something.
They're afraid that something may happen, and this is not the situation in case when Russia is winning this war. In case Russia was winning this war, the situation could be quite opposite. So I think Ukraine will never accept the peace deal on conditions which will, first of all, ruin the world security principles that one country can annex territory of other country, put it in their own constitution and say that it's our territory. The fact that one country can commit atrocities during their aggression, and that those war criminals who committed those atrocities will not be punished, and many other points in which Ukraine and Russia, they're just on the different sides of the deal, and in this case, this deal is not acceptable in any way, despite the willingness of President Trump, of Witkoff, and their team to make business with Russia. It will not happen.
Well, Jonathan, remember that in the Persian War between United States against Iraq,
yes.
The United States had no properties in Kuwait or Iraq, so they were completely independent from that, and yet they put an enormous army to defend Kuwait because it was a violation of international order by Iraq, and we know what's happened. So, but there's a big difference between Iraq and Russia. Let's face it.
And also, I might point out, George Bush Sr., when he launched and he did the correct thing, by the way, in limiting his objectives. He simply kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. And he was asked, by the way, why he did not go on to Baghdad. And President Bush, President Bush Sr. had an excellent resume. He had about as good a resume for being president as you could possibly expect. He'd held so many positions.
Agreed.
And he said,
CIA director.
Yes, he was CIA. He was the director of Central Intelligence. He'd been a congressman. I mean, good heavens. He said the reason he did not go to try to take Baghdad is that he did not want to be caught in the middle of a civil war.
Let's leave it to his son.
No, he was thinking, it's a pity that his son did not take the hint or did not learn the proper lesson. His son, unfortunately, went in, got us caught in the middle of a civil war. So that's, but George Bush Sr., he knew better. He did not, he achieved the objective, he cut it off there, and that was it. And oh, by the way, one of the Indian defense minister at the time, I don't have his name at the time, but he was asked following the end of the Persian Gulf War, what was the great lesson to the rest of the world about the United States victory in the Persian Gulf? And the response of the Indian defense minister was, never fight the United States unless you have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
What is funny, George Bush Sr. was head of the CIA, and now son of the CIA deputy director was killed fighting against Ukraine. Son of deputy director of the CIA was fighting within the Russian army as a volunteer. He was so persuaded by Russian propaganda that he joined Russian army as volunteer and fight against Ukraine and was killed in Ukraine. So
that's just that's unfortunate. And
unfortunate for him and unfortunate for United States. That,
it makes you wonder why did he do
that relatives or probably the top managers of American government, of American intelligence, being influenced by Russian propaganda.
Well, maybe Vitkov will be the next one who will be influenced by Russian propaganda.
He already is, actually. He already is, unfortunately.
Before we finish program, I'd like to mention one scenario where Ukrainians should not liquidate the Crimea Bridge.
Okay.
If it's in very near future, Putin will be gone or killed, and Russia will go into 8, maybe even more independent republics, and the Krasnodar will have its own republic, and Ukraine will take Krasnodar in as its territory. So then the bridge will be very useful, actually, for Ukraine.
Yeah.
They don't have to build one.
If you have a political disintegration within Russia, then the preservation of the Kerch Bridge would be a desirable thing.
Then it's desirable.
But short of that, then destruction of and I would say that the second best scenario, second best to yours that you have, is for the Kerch for Ukraine to launch that counteroffensive at the decisive moment to get back Crimea and force a peace. You would have it. You could have anything is better than a peace which rewards Russia in any way, any visible way for having.
That will be peace not with Putin, but with somebody else.
Have to be
Trump will have to start looking for a new partner very soon.
He's going to have to look for a new deal. Exactly.
So, Kim Chen-in, he already met with Kim Chen-in, a North Korean leader, during this first term. So I think he would be a great business partner for President Trump to make business with North Korea. They have really great IT specialists, and they have great constructors and great agricultural segment. So probably it would be a great deal for a great leader like Donald Trump is.
Yeah, you hit it right in. Listen, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just think in some respects it's just darkly amusing to see, these. There are going to be some leaders who are going to have their illusions shattered in the next few months. That is about as the safest prediction that I can make right now, that there are going to be people who are going to have their eyes opened, much the same way, by the way, that Jimmy Carter had his eyes opened during the Cold War, when before the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, President Carter was he was lecturing the American people that we shouldn't not have this inordinate fear of communism. He was very soft on the Soviet Union. Then the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and Carter's eyes were opened, and he recognized the true nature of the regime he was facing. That was when he initiated the grain embargo against the Soviet Union, boycotted the Moscow Olympics, and most crucially, as I pointed out before, he initiated the defense buildup.
The
great defense buildup, which most people don't pay attention to. But I knew it because I saw the effects of it when I came on active duty. And in October of 1980, I, along with a whole bunch of other service members, we were all going to get an 11.1% pay raise. Huge, one of the biggest ones in the Cold War period. And that was just the beginning. When Ronald Reagan became president, all he had to do, because the buildup was already underway, he just stepped on the accelerator.
Yeah. What I'd like to thank you very much, both of you, for today's program. Have a great weekend, and all our listeners. And we'll see you hopefully on Tuesday, same place, same time. Thank you very much, and Slava Ukraini. Glory to Ukraine.
Героям
North
слава.
America. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.